and I cannot wait to open a Q&A session. So first of all, thank you once again for sharing everything. And we have one very good question that Arzoo has already touched on. So what would be your advice? How should we better educate healthcare practitioners to actually further give a higher focus on urticaria, and so that the people would not feel a little bit disregarded and their symptoms would not be undervalued? So what would be your main advice?
And Aistė, you asking me?
Yes, I just let the question into the air.
Yes, no, sure. Arzoo, do you want to say anything?
I'm very happy for you to begin, Kristen.
Okay. I think the patient voice is what is the top of mind for me here. I think that too often the providers who are learning about our conditions do not understand the depth of the impact of our conditions. So I recently went to a conference, the European Respiratory Society conference, where at several of the sessions, there was a patient speaker who sat on the panel, presented just as the other researchers did, and talked about the experience, their entire patient journey. It was just a part. It was expected that they would be there. Yes, I think this is how it has to happen, because if not, I don't think people understand. And I think Arzoo drove that home, and that was my experience as well. That people just thought it's like almost having mosquito bites, and it's absolutely not. You cannot leave your home, you cannot leave the couch, you don't know what tomorrow will look like. And I think doing presentations like Arzoo just did and using those impactful words and the images, right? People need to see those images. I also had an experience, Arzoo, I don't know if this happened to you, where I would get to my allergist and my hives would be gone. And I had to have photos to say, this is what I'm experiencing, right? Yeah. So I think it's raising our voices and making sure that we're being heard in as many forms as possible. Sorry, go ahead.
I think the photo diary point is just so important. When I got to my specialist, I was so exhausted, but I just took out my photo diary and I said, hey, look at the last 10 months. You can just go through the pictures. Right. I can't retell this story for you again right now. And I think you're absolutely right that the voice has to be the patient's. But I also wonder whether we need to think about where that education takes place, because it's all well and good for us to have these dedicated spaces to urticaria, but how do we mainstream urticaria as a condition that is being discussed in platforms alongside other conditions? And I think it's about maybe making some of those shifts as well, so that this isn't an add-on that doctors need to, or HCPs need to go and find where to get the information, but it's part of their ongoing training, wherever they're getting that.
Yeah, and I want to elaborate a little bit here. What you're saying is more than correct. We as a physicians do appreciate actually having your symptoms all documented, and whatever the form you choose for it, whether it's the app, the cruise app that the urticariologists have built for actually comprehending a good disease control and the impact on the life quality, or when it's just a simple diary with allowing us to better understand what are the main triggers of your disease, how can we help, and what are your main struggles. And it's completely true, urticaria is sometimes underestimated, and especially its impact on the quality of life. And sometimes it's not surprising, because physicians also not always are very familiar with the disease. And that is something that we doing these type of webinars, that UCARE is dedicating their work for, is actually striving for, to actually raise the awareness. And it has to come from all the possible sides, from patients, from fellow colleagues, from the governmental levels, and from the other type of NGOs. So yeah, I think you are definitely right on this case.
And just to add to that, just quickly, I do think that it's important for that peer-to-peer conversation to be happening. So if you can find HCP champions that understand the patient experience, and they can then talk to their colleagues, even better if they belong to associations that then can include it in their trainings as a more central part of their care delivery, particularly for GPs, if that's where it's being managed most, right? So I think your HCP champions can go a long way as well, just like you were alluding to.
That's an amazing idea, and using the chance to discuss with you a little bit more, addressing one of the questions, I would like to ask our support team to pull up Kristen's data once again, and in the meantime, contact data once again for patients to be actually able to reach out to you and have the further guidance on their journey with the disease. I would like to ask you a short question. How would you envision the future of patient organizations? What perspectives do you see? What type of risks and challenges? What do we have to be prepared for? And what do you wish for yourself as part of patient organizations? Kristen, you can gladly start.
Great question. So I think that the future of patient organizations, a lot of this will be in working with digital health. I think that's something that, particularly post-COVID, is here to stay. And I think it's a matter of now equipping the organizations and the patients with whom we work to understand that that is sort of the new normal. I think it makes it even more difficult to have these conversations and to impress upon your physician that what you're experiencing is considerable when you're behind a screen. Right? But I think we will see a lot more of that moving forward. I think this is a risk always, but I think sometimes when there are new things that come up, our conditions that we hold so dear to us because we experience them are at risk of becoming eclipsed by whatever the new thing is, right? So in some cases it was COVID, and then many other things fell by the wayside. People weren't going to the doctor, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's something that we need to be mindful of moving forward as sort of a risk, and keeping the constant cadence of information and keeping our voices heard when it comes to demanding policy changes, new treatments, et cetera, can help so that that does not happen, right? Not to get discouraged on those fronts. And I can't remember your other questions, but they were lovely.
So Arzoo, maybe you would like to elaborate a little bit more. So we have one of the main challenges, the digital setting, right? That might lead to a little bit miscommunication. What is your perspective onto that? What are the challenges, and what, Kristen, in the meantime, you can also think a little bit about it. What do you wish for the patient organizations in the future? What would be your greatest wish if we had your birthday wish today?
I think this point you touch on about the shift towards the digital and thinking about how much information is out there. So I think there is a risk and a challenge that patients could be overwhelmed with different sources of information, and being able to really find what those trusted sources of information are. There's so much on the internet. I read a lot that didn't make sense. I read a lot that I wanted to try, but then, after doing more and more research, you realize actually that's probably not the case. So I think the big challenge for patient organizations is going to be to retain that voice and influence that they've been building, and to perhaps be elevated through the healthcare networks. So it's about building those partnerships between the healthcare system, between those who are developing treatments, and really having their voices amplified as organizations, rather than kind of leaving patients to go out there and be faced with this complete overload of information. And I think the other area that I'm personally invested in is around research and allowing patients to almost shape that research agenda in a meaningful way. So the way in which these trials are designed, who they involve, having enough representation from different communities, that is going to be really critical to ensuring that when these treatments are developed, that they are of benefit to everyone. So I would love for research to really be reflective and efficacious for all patients across the board.
Oh yeah, the research field is actually striving, and there's so much happening in terms of urticaria research. Every day there are new knowledge that we obtain, and we are more than happy to share with everyone, with all of the community. So Kristen, what would be your wish?
So I think I had 3 wishes, so I will have to, I'll squeeze them all in quickly. And mine is related to the last thing that Arzoo said. I think one of the wishes would be increased funding. With increased funding, it becomes an increased priority almost globally about what we're talking about: awareness, education, research, etc. So I think if we can then increase the funding, particularly for research, you can make leaps and bounds, right? I think the second for me would be a magic wand for awareness. There are many conditions that have been quite successful at getting the information into everyone's homes, right? There are conditions where that has happened, and that the stigma is now different than it was 20 years ago, etc. So if we could if I had a magic wand to then use a blueprint to make that happen for this, that would be fantastic. And then the last thing that I would wish for was then even that we have beautiful partnerships that we have developed as a result of the work that we're all doing, and today is evidence of that. I think increasing the partnerships to make sure that we are working with associations, with GP associations, making sure that our organizations are all working together even more than we are now, because of that last slide that I had, being better together. I think that's one of the keys to our success in the long run.
Oh yeah. I really hope that all of your wishes will come true. Maybe we'll need a little bit more than a magic wand, but I do strongly believe that a team effort that we are together working for is definitely something that could make it happen. And I am extremely happy that these type of partnerships, these type of discussions as today, with us from different perspectives, sitting in one place, discussing and talking how can we actually shape a better future for our patients, is extremely important, fascinating, and I hope we'll have more opportunities to discuss and share our experiences, our knowledge. And I want to thank you all for joining, for engaging in this webinar, for paying your attention and giving us your time. Thank you, my lovely colleagues, sharing your experiences. And I do believe that more patients will get actively involved in their care. And I do encourage all of the patients, look for your physician. There's a good physician for you that will take your symptoms seriously and will provide you the best possible care. And in the meantime, we'll do the best to spread the knowledge. And I encourage you to scan QR code and follow us on our social media platforms to be involved and to be up to date. Always when it comes to urticaria knowledge, news, we share everything on it. And I really hope to connect with you on our social media. And it's very important for you to leave your feedback. So if you have a spare minute today, please do not hesitate to let us know. How did we do today? What are your wishes? What would you expect more in the future webinars? And we will gladly provide you with that. I want to thank you all once again, participants, panelists, UCARE office, and of course, our sponsors who actually made this webinar possible. Thank you, and I wish you a lovely rest of the day.
Thank you.